Welcome back to the Some Kind of Mystic podcast. Today's episode is a little bit different, and honestly, I love that because mysticism is not only candles, crystals, and the cosmos. Sometimes it's the sacred work of solving a real human mystery. My guest today is Russell Van Brocklen, a dyslexia specialist and educator who helps parents and students improve reading and writing outside of the traditional school system. He uses brain-based strategies and real practical framework for helping students learn how to learn. Russell's story begins with his own experiences with dyslexia and discrimination and turns it into a mission, helping kids to reclaim confidence, skill, and momentum, often faster than any of the systems around them expect them to. And here's where it becomes mystic in the way that I mean it. We're talking about initiation. The kind where a person is pushed into the unknown, meets a wall, and then discovers a way through. Russell calls it solving the mystery, and I call it remembering your own inherent power. So if you're a parent, a neurodivergent adult, or someone who's ever felt that the system wasn't built for the way that your mind works, this conversation might land in a very surprising place. Please welcome Russell Van Brocklen to the Some Kind of Mystic podcast. Welcome, Russell, to the Some Kind of Mystic podcast. I'm so thrilled to have you here. What a delight. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
So I'd love to dive right into what it is that you want to share as your message to the world, because I know that this is one of your main focuses right now, and you're trying to get what you're trying to explain to people out to as many people as possible. I'd love for our listeners to hear it right from you, what the plan is, what it is you're trying to share.
Well, the main thing I'm trying to share with folks is how to resolve your kids' dyslexic concerns outside the school system. I generally show parents how to do this themselves. And it all started with me back when I interned for the New York State Assembly. It was the late 90s. I was finishing up college, and I wanted to know how laws were made, not some course I wanted to know. So I signed up for the New York State Assembly internship. I show up and I said, here's my neuropsychological evaluation. I have a first grade reading and writing level. And the director kind of freaked because he said, this will not work. Went to the speaker's office and they said, you have to accommodate this kid. We accepted him. You're going to make this work. So they got a committee together and they decided to do something radical. They pulled me literally out of the legislative office building and they put me in the Majority Leaders Program and Council's office in the state capitol. This was a big deal because the social aspect of the internship was huge. And now I was completely cut off from my peers outside of classes. And I can see why they did it. When they put me in the Majority Leader Program and Council's office, it ran the assembly day to day. And they literally had no idea what to do with me. So they started treating me like a graduate student. So I had a much better, it's a real internship instead of going and get the coffee and the donuts.
Sure.
And they had 3 administrative assistants, so it worked brilliantly. Then for the academic portion, I gave a very long presentation instead of the research project. Goes back to the political science department at the State University of New York Center at Buffalo. That was with a recommendation of A-. But they didn't like the accommodations the state came up with itself. So I got 15 credits of F.
Okay.
Okay. Do you have any idea what that does to a grade point average?
Well, I can imagine it's not very good.
Yeah, it just sank things. So I said, I'm done with the discrimination.
Right.
I asked my professors, where can I go to force myself to learn to read and write well in grad school? And they said, law school. So I went to law school. And my second day in contracts, the professor calls on me. And what they do is they squash you with a Socratic method. They ask you questions you can't answer until you eventually can. And then they just embarrass the heck out of you to encourage you to adapt as quickly as possible. That didn't happen to me. I responded not as a student, but as his equal. And he was a professor for 30 years. And he kind of frustrated him. So he kept asking me harder and harder questions. And I kept responding as his equal. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. He finally threw up his hand and said, Russell, you couldn't be any more correct. I have to move on to the next case in the interest of time. I learned to read within a month. I learned to write within a couple of years. Then I went back to the New York State Senate and I said, I want you to fund my research. Took years of back work. Eventually I was accepted for funding and we went to the Averill Park Central School District right outside of Albany, New York, where I graduated. We took their best juniors and seniors that were highly dyslexic, highly motivated, highly intelligent, and we gave them for one class period a day through the school year a process. And they increased their writing from these around the 0th percentile up to around to the average of entering graduate students from the 30th to 70th percentile. They all went on to college. They all graduated with grade point averages of 2.5 to 3.6. That's how I got
Wow.
started.
Okay. So that's absolutely amazing. So, it sounds like within this process, there's some sort of secret that you stumbled upon through having the experience yourself and through having the challenges yourself. So understanding the configuration of this type of brain then leads to finding processes and systems that can work for the teaching of things that were built for the other type of brain style, but then to be adapted. Is that what I'm understanding?
Right. So basically what Yale found is the front part of the brain is 2.5 times overactive. And they say it deals with articulation followed by word analysis.
Mm-hmm.
So I chose the graduate records exam analytical writing assessment. Analytical, articulation, to me, the same thing. And that's why these kids were so incredibly successful. Because we're using the part of the brain that's 2.5 times overactive.
Right.
So that worked. But then I presented that in New York City. It was 2006. I thought I did something amazing. I thought that I did something that was going to change the world, that I was done. I was wrong. I had 2 responses. The teacher said, well, does this work with normal kids? And I said, no. Well, make it work for normal kids.
Okay.
And because I only dealt with the highly motivated, the highly intelligent. And then the professors came back to me and they said, some of your students scored in the 70th percentile on the GRE analytical writing assessment. We don't care. We want the craft of research. I was like, the craft of what? The Craft of Research. Currently, it has sold over 1 million copies. It's the top book to teach PhD students how to write their doctoral dissertations. And supposedly, it's for advanced high school kids, even though no private school in New York City teaches it because it's too evolved. Okay. So what I did is they broke it down into context, problem, solution. I dropped context to 9 and 10-year-olds. Problems for the minor part, for more advanced part through 7th grade, problem to 8th and 9th graders, and solution from 10th grade and above. And that's been fun. So that's generally where I've been going. But just so your listeners can go away with something, what can they do with most of them? The biggest problem they have is their kids in elementary school, and just they're writing randomly placed misspelled words and they don't even know where to begin. So I want to briefly explain to you how they can fix that big problem. Okay. Do you know any dyslexic kids at all in elementary school ever?
I know at the moment, no, but I do. My cousin had both of my cousins had dyslexia, and there's quite a bit of difference in the way brains work in my own family. So yeah, there's a bit of a knowing of how that can manifest, but not currently.
Okay. Well, your cousins, did you know them well when they were in elementary school?
Yeah.
Way back.
That's when I knew them. Yeah.
Okay. Were they any of them writing essentially randomly placed misspelled words?
I think so. Yeah. I think quite often. I think that was the frustration.
So I want you to pick out one of your cousins and change their name to protect their identity. What's their made-up name?
Okay, Marcy.
Marcy. Okay, and now we need to find out what her speciality was, her area of extreme interest and ability. What would that be?
See, she seemed to have a predisposition towards like social aspects. So she was someone who could make friends with anyone type of thing. Was very interested in social interaction and stuff like that.
Okay, so we're going to call her social interaction was her thing that she really loved and she really did. Okay. So what you're going to do is you're going to get out a laptop computer, not an iPad, not an iPhone, certainly not handwriting. And you're going to type out hero +, what are we talking about?
Hero +, what are we talking about?
Yep, hero +, what are we talking about? Then Marcy's going to copy, typing out hero +, what are we talking about?
Okay.
Then we're going to swap out hero for Marcy. So Marcy +, what are we talking about? Then you're going to have a list of 10 things that Marcy really, really liked, and then 10 things that Marcy really, really hated. And we're going to go and find out what she likes, social interaction. So then we're going to go down, we're going to swap out here. Oh, we got Marcy +, what are we talking about? We're going to swap out what are we talking about for social interaction. See how we got there?
Yeah.
Now I'm going to try to fool you with the simplest questions ever. If you answer them exactly, then this will work. If not, then this won't work, and most people have an epiphany on what dyslexia is. Do you think I can fool you with the simplest questions ever?
Who knows? I'm easily fooled.
Okay. Let's give it a shot. Just try to answer this exactly as I ask you. So we have Marcy +, social interaction. we need to swap out the plus sign for a word. So here's my question. Does Marcy like or dislike social interaction?
Marcy likes social interaction.
Yes, but that's not what I asked.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
Okay.
What did you ask?
I asked, does Marcy like or dislike social interaction?
Marcy like social interaction?
There you go.
Wow.
So did you see what happened?
Right. I translated it to a grammatical functioning as opposed to swapping out the word. Okay.
Right. But Marcy's dyslexic. You added the S.
Right.
Marcy doesn't know how to add the S. She's dyslexic.
Okay. I see.
Okay. Adding the S, going back to the brains, that massive neural activity, that's where that happens. Marcy's got next to nothing going on. So the easiest thing to do is to take what's not going on back here and move it up here where she has 2.5 times the neural activity.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Amazing. Yeah, very cool. Very, very cool.
Okay. So here's how we do that. When I tried to make this work for younger kids, for normal dyslexics, I found that the articulation followed by word analysis just didn't work. So I swapped it. Word analysis followed by articulation. All right. So when we look at does Marcy like or dislike, do you see how that's a very simple form of word analysis? Okay. So we got Marcy like social interaction. How do we get her to fix this? So here's how parents can do this at home. We would have Marcy read what she wrote out loud. Marcy, like social interaction. We would ask Marcy, does that sound generally correct? And she would say no. I would say, Marcy, fix it. Marcy likes social interaction. And then we have to practice that with 10 likes and 10 dislikes until she has it down. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Because the hearing is obviously, there's an understanding of what is being said, but it's the actual, part of the brain that transfers that to letters, to words, that makes it a little bit complicated, correct?
You're making this so much easier for me. Okay. All right. Yeah, that's exactly what's going on. Yeah. So now we have that, but now let's go for a simple reason. Why does Marcy like social interaction? Just give me something that she would have said when she was 10. Some simple reason.
Well, she loves to get to know other people. She's excited about learning from them. She's curious.
She likes social interaction because she likes to get to know other people. Now, do you see how we just have a mess of misspelled words there?
Yeah. Well, if you're having this type of trouble, yeah.
Yeah. Well, here's how we fix that. We tell Marcy to put a period down. Then we have her read what she wrote out loud. Marcy, does it sound generally correct? And you tell her to fix it until it does. Not worried about spelling it. Why? Schools don't know what to do with massive, horrendous grammar mistakes. They just don't know. But this will get rid of that. They can do with the simple and mild stuff. The horrible stuff, they don't know what to do. This fixes that. So now here's how we correct the spelling. We tell her each time in what she wrote, if there's a misspelled word, she has to retype the entire thing. Then you do the same thing for reason 1 and reason 2, and then reason 1, reason 2, and reason 3.
Right.
When you're finished with all of this, you're going to find that their writing has jumped from probably the kindergarten, beginning first grade level, to the end of second, beginning third grade level. And here's the key thing. The reading has improved quite a bit because here's the key point. If you can write it, you can read it. Does that make sense?
Makes sense, yeah.
Okay. So that's the starting point. But I found out I couldn't get these kids to do anything. And then I remembered back to when I went to law school, and I did really well. I love the political science aspect, so law was a natural extender for grad school. So I was like, okay. And I talked to other successful dyslexic professors and found the same thing. Kindergarten through college, they did not do well compared to their eventual peers. They owned grad school day one.
I love that you've touched on this topic because it really is one of these topics that the listeners to this show, I'm constantly harping on. You have to be doing what you love, because if you're not, you're heading in the wrong direction. There's no way back from that. And every part of your functionality, whatever way your brain works best, et cetera, it's not going to work at its top performance, and it's not going to be able to absorb at its top level. So this is something that you're touching on that is one of the principles of existence. We're all programmed to love the thing that's going to bring us the furthest down the road of, towards our happiness, which is amazing.
Yes. The key thing about, this also works for ADD and ADHD kids.
Yep.
So did you ever notice an ADHD kid?
Yep.
Okay. You notice how they can't get them to do anything?
Yeah.
And then
anything that's not interesting to them, that's not going to happen, right?
Then we focus on their speciality, Casey was Theodore Roosevelt.
Right.
you know, and then they sit down and they're total. My problem is when they do
Completely
this is not
focused.
getting them involved. It's pulling them away to do things like
Yes,
eat dinner,
absolutely.
go to
Or
bed.
change their clothing or have a
Yeah,
shower, whatever.
or
Yeah,
anything.
absolutely. I see that all the time. Absolutely.
So basically, and again, this is only for the intervention period.
Hmm.
So then that's the first part. The second part I found, which was quite interesting, I got this from senior dyslexic professors. Do you remember in school, they would start off with a big picture, and then over a long time, they eventually get down to details?
Yeah.
Okay. If I were to imagine we're going to wave our magic wand, send you back to when you were 16. If you were asked, what effect, when you were 16, what effect did Martin Luther King's famous I Have a Dream speech have on the 1960 civil rights movement? You would just know what to do, and you would just go and do it and come back with a paper on it, correct?
Yeah, if you had memorized it or what to research,
No, you would
absolutely,
just go look it up in the library,
for sure.
write a paper, because you just know what to do. With a dyslexic, that's like grabbing fog. We
Right.
have no idea how to do that.
Mhm.
Because with us, if you ask a dyslexic or ADD or ADHD kid, in your speciality, in your area of extreme interest and ability, do you have ideas flying around your head at light speed, but with little to no organization? They're going to say yes.
Right.
So what we have, because what's happening is the front part of the brain is just, it's just massive neuroactivity with little to no organization. So what we have to do, here's a key point, is we have to force the brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output. So let me say that again. We have to force the brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output. So how do we do that? We start from the specific, and then we move out to the general. So, for example, for Martin Luther King, we would ask, what specifically compelled Martin Luther King to want to give his famous speech? We find the answer in his biography. That answer gives us a question, which gives us an answer, which gives us a question, which gives us an answer, which forces the brain to organize itself using writing as a measurable output.
Okay.
So the model is really simple. Focus on, during the intervention period only, to get the kid to grade level or above, to focus on their speciality, teaching them from the specific to the general, word analysis followed by articulation.
Right. So really what's happening is you're actually giving a new model that functions better with this person's brain of how to learn, because you keep talking about only in the intervention period. After that, in theory, you can move away from what is your speciality, let's say, so as to, learn other topics if they're necessary for some other aspect of your life, is what I'm understanding.
Right. So in my original study, my experiment of did this work is these kids went to college.
Right.
But these were exceedingly, again, hyper intelligent, hyper motivated, but they all went to college. They all graduated with no accommodations, GPAs of 2.5 to 3.6. Now, parents say, what about a normal kid? I can't tell you before I met Kimberly, because my clients are very private. They don't want them to know. So I spoke to Kimberly last December 26th. She's a homeschooling mom in Ohio. And she said, yeah, we can do this. So I have full permission to tell her story. Just like literally less than 2 weeks before we spoke, she paid $700 to have the state of Ohio test her kids. And her son Reed was in 5th grade. He was reading at the 11th percentile, writing at the 4th percentile. I worked with her to overcome this for 5.5 months. Reed jumped from the 7th percentile in reading to this. Now, the data I'm giving you is from August.
Okay.
Because his friends wanted him in school for social reasons. He agreed. So they tested him on his way in. So this is retested in a public school. So the data is much better. He went from the 11th percentile to the 64th in reading, the 4th percentile to the 65th in writing. He's now in public school getting A's and B's.
That's great. Because
Kimberly solved what every parent dreamed of. She brought him to grade, actually a little bit above grade level, and she did it in a total of about 36 hours, and I worked with her for half an hour a week. That's how she literally taught him 7 times faster than the public school could. And she did in less than half the time that they would have spent with him. That's how powerful.
Let's pause for just a moment, because I want to make sure you're not just listening, but actually allowing everything in this episode to land for you. Now, if you're someone who's had spiritual experiences, big realizations, or even just the sense of I'm awake, but I still feel stuck, then this is exactly why I've created my work and this podcast. I'm Jessie Herman, and alongside Vagrein, I help people come more into themselves through unity consciousness, radical self-acceptance, and very down-to-earth tools that actually work in everyday life. So if you're loving this episode, hit subscribe and leave a review, because it's the simplest way to support the show and my work and to keep these conversations flowing. And if you ever want to go deeper with me, head on over to www.jpherman.com, where I have many different offerings that can help take you from point A, where you are right now, to point where you want to be. There's always something there for you, and I will add the link in the show notes. All right, let's get back to this amazing episode. Very, very cool. So, I'm very curious about, have you seen patterns because of the brain is different, but also, souls come in to have the certain missions that they have. Have you noticed patterns in these kids or in these people with what are considered difficulties? I honestly believe it's the system that doesn't work. I think I'm on the same page as you, but have you seen patterns that lean towards other aspects that would explain why someone would come in with this kind of challenges outside of, the scientific research that's been done? Have you seen themes about what someone's here to do in life? Are they here to change the system? What's going on with that?
You'll see another interesting pattern this is going back to an interview with a famous CEO back then, and they didn't want to mention his name, but he ran a Fortune 500 company.
Mm-hmm.
And the regulators came in and wanted to know where his files were. And every time you have a successful dyslexic CEO like that, the person behind them is hyper organized.
Yes.
Very detailed, like to the point of being a pain in the neck. And that's somebody that helps keep them going. They said, well, our CEO doesn't keep files. A piece of paper comes in, he deals with it, and then it gets literally tossed. He doesn't have files.
Right.
And they're like, well, he's running a Fortune 500 company. And they're like,
yeah, how do you do that?
Yes, well, he's dyslexic and he doesn't like paperwork.
Right. And the brain is organized differently, so the company's organized differently. I had an interesting experience. I was meant to go meet this man who was extremely intelligent, and I knew this, and a mentor to hundreds and hundreds of very powerful people. So I said, I'm being invited for a dinner. I'm going to bring a copy of my book as a gift and a painting, And so I go and I present this, bottle of wine, all the whole thing, right? I go, oh, hello, so nice to meet you. Thank you so much for having me here. I've brought you a couple of gifts. Here's the painting. Oh, thank you so much for the painting. Here's a copy of my book. No, thank you. I go, oh, okay. What's going on here? It's like, no, I don't read. I don't read. I never learned to read. I'm dyslexic, and there's no, I'm not going to accept the book because it would just be, it would sit on a shelf collecting dust. So give it to someone who will enjoy it and stuff like that. And it was like, it's kind of affronting because you go, oh, right. Well, that's where the genius is also allowing other roots to get through and, gives them their superpowers in other ambience, is the fact that not only do they have dyslexia, or no, I don't even think you say have dyslexia, just have this configuration, but complete acceptance of it. Not a hint of any sort of this is a problem, just a complete acceptance. And I think that's something that this whole area, whether, in terms of all of our differences in terms of brain function, can really allow people to shine and to blossom. So I think that also, because a lot of people here will be parents of kids who are having learning difficulties, I think it's really important to remember that your kids are exactly the way they are for a specific reason, for their gifts to grow and shine. And as a parent, your job is to help, of course, and cultivate that. Help learn, through your modalities, tools to learn how to learn that works for them outside of the schooling system. And then also just what is their speciality, like you were talking about. I love this whole, this whole approach to it. It's really amazing.
Well, thanks. But when you're dealing with somebody like that, have you recorded have you made an audible book from your
Yes, I
book
have
so far?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's available as well.
So what you would do is, because you have a good voice, you're very articulate. So what I would do is I would just say, instead of just as a backup, if you're dealing with a dyslexic, put yours up on Audible from Amazon, and then just say, hey, here's a copy of my book. And we listen to them, because I have over 600 books in my library.
Oh, beautiful.
Now, so what you're talking about when it comes to writing, actually, we are, once we're properly trained, superior writers, not in the flow of a body paragraph, not in our styling of it, but in the quality of its construction and its thought process.
I can imagine. Okay. Wonderful. Well, this has been absolutely fascinating. I would love for you to share with everyone what your offerings are right now. how people can reach out if they've heard this and they love your help or your books, whatever it is that you want to share with people at this point, I'd love to hear about it.
So the best thing to do to contact me to see if I can help your kid is to first of all, we have to figure out what the speciality is. So if you go to dyslexiaclasses.com, that's dyslexia classes with an S, dyslexiaclasses.com, there is a button there that says download free guide. Click on it, answer a few questions. You're going to get a free guide about dyslexia. But the most important thing is you actually have to set up a time to speak with me. And then I'll sit down for you and your child for half an hour, find out what their speciality is, ask them a couple of questions so they know I'm like them. This is how their brain works, and there's no cost for that. And if the kid likes to go forward with that process, we show parents how to teach their kids. And I'm just saying, yes, the school's supposed to be doing this. It's impossible to get into the public schools, and by the time you fight it, you could have just, in much less time, solved it yourself.
Wonderful.
And we can show you how to do that at a very affordable.
People all over the world potentially, or is it only locally based?
We work with people all over the place.
Brilliant. Okay, wonderful. So I will also put the website address in the show notes. And I would love to ask you, since, just to get back on theme, has any of this impacted how you think of yourself as a spiritual being as well?
Yes, I can tell you that when I was going through this process, remember, this took me 20 years to over 20 years to do this. There were so many points where it was going to fail, and then a solution presented itself again and again and again, to the point where I just know that this isn't random. This is not, there's something out there kind of guiding me towards this. And it's something that it just spiritually, without that, there's no way I could have gone through this. Because remember what I've accomplished. Yeah. I've taken something that takes 2 years of training post-college and $11,000 for non-for-profit, made it drastically more powerful, and made it simple enough that if a 14-year-old AP English student can teach it.
Wonderful. Yeah. And it sounds like, you've been following your calling. You've been following your passion. I mean, nobody came up to you and said, hey, you have to do this. It is part of your speciality and you're following your love. So that is something that, reflects and makes you an example to other people as well.
Well, I mean, just look what I gave up. I was in the Majority Leaders Program in counsel's office. The ability to pick up the phone and talk to the people that literally run the assembly day to day is incredibly valuable. I was offered lobbying positions. I was offered senior positions within the state government because of the contacts and because of the recommendations I had from there. And I turned that all down because instead of the A- I was promised, I was given, I expected maybe they didn't like the accommodations. Maybe they'd give me a B+ or a B. I wasn't going to tolerate the F.
Wow. Yeah. So a real turning point for you, that catalyst, that change.
That changed everything for me.
Yeah, absolutely. One last question. What does the word mystic mean to you? Because I believe everyone's a mystic, but what does that word mean to you?
Mystic means to solve the mystery to me.
Beautiful. And thank you so much, Russell. This has been fascinating for me. I have a feeling there is some amazing applications for it outside of the academic field as well. I wish you all the luck with your continued endeavors. And of course, you're helping so many people in the world. So my gratitude for that as well. I'm sure there's so many people who are going on to have these fantastic lives that they didn't think were possible because of what they're learning from you. So that's absolutely a blessing. And thank you so much for being here with us.
And last thing, but just, personally, would you believe that dyslexics, once trained, are better readers than most non-dyslexics? Thank you. This was, as I said, when you just picked up on what I was doing and explained, I was like, wow, this makes my life so much easier.
Great. So we both made each other's life easy today.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here, and take care.
You too. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for spending this time with me and for listening to the Some Kind of Mystic podcast. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. So leave a comment right here below, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need it right now. And if you're listening on a podcast platform, then leaving a review and letting others know what you think of the show is one of the biggest ways you can support it. And it helps these conversations reach the people that they are meant for. You will find links to my work and to Russell's work and everything we talked about today in the show notes. And you can always head over to www.jpherman.com for more information about everything that I do. And until next time, trust your knowing, honor your uniqueness, and remember you're more awake and more ready than you think you are. Thank you so much for listening to Some Kind of Mystic.